Scrooged, Espresso, and the Central Park 5 are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is November 23rd, 2021. It is the 327th day of the year. We got 38 days left. It is the 47th Tuesday in the 48th week and the 63rd day of fall. We got 28 days until winter. If today's your birthday, you're a Sagittarius. Today is National Espresso Day. Their website says this: get some pure coffee essence on National Espresso Day, whether you sip one cup or keep buzzing all day. November 23rd is your day. The word espresso is actually Italian and it means quick in time. Before they invented the espresso machine, espresso was simply a coffee expressly made for one person ordering it. In the late 1800s, this practice was commonplace in cafes and restaurants. All right, let's see what else November 23rd has given us. 1890, King William III of the Netherlands dies without a male heir. A special law is passed to allow his daughter, Princess Wilhelmina, to succeed him. 1910, Sweden executes its last person. Yeah, that's the last time they executed someone. His name was Johann Alfred Ander. 1940, during World War II, Romania signs on with the Axis. Most people don't know that it was more than just the main three countries. You had Germany, Italy, and the Empire of Japan. But there was a few other ones. The Kingdom of Hungary, Romania, like we just said, Slavic Republic, Kingdom of Bulgaria, Independent State of Croatia, Republic of Finland, and the Kingdom of Thailand. How'd they get mixed up in this? 1974, 60 Ethiopian politicians, aristocrats, military officers, and other persons are executed by the Provisional Military Government. 1978, the Geneva Frequency Plan of 1975 goes into effect, realigning many of Europe's long-wave and medium-wave broadcasting frequencies. 1981, the Iran-Contra affair. President Ronald Reagan signed the top-secret national security decision, Directive 17, or NSDD-17, giving the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, the authority to recruit and support Contra rebels in Nicaragua. 1992, the first smartphone, the IBM Simon, is introduced at Comdex in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Simon would eventually be released on August 16, 1994. It didn't last long. They discontinued it in February of 1995 after selling about 50,000 units. It's so weird to see this thing that it's got no keyboard, nothing like that, just the old number pad. This is considered to be the first true smartphone, even though the word smartphone wasn't coined until after it was discontinued. I mean, this thing, for the time, it was groundbreaking, I'm sure. I didn't have one. I remember a friend had one of those briefcase phones back in the 80s, but I never saw the Simon, and I guess it had about an hour worth of battery life. My first smartphone was a BlackBerry, and I loved that thing. It was hard to switch over to Apple. I stuck with that BlackBerry for quite some time. 2001, the Convention of Cybercrime is signed in Budapest, Hungary. This kind of made it so all countries could share intelligence against cyber criminals who, they're kind of global. They're not just one country. 2007, MS Explorer, a cruise liner carrying 154 people, sinks in the Arctic Ocean south of Argentina after hitting an iceberg near the South Shetland Islands. There were no fatalities. This is great. I mean, you'd think something bad happens down there, you're screwed, but there were no fatalities. That's really great. This is one of the cruises I'd like to take someday. Don't know if I ever will. That might be a little rough oceans, and I don't think my wife will go for it, but it does look very interesting. Movies released on November 23rd, 2012, we got the Central Park 5. This was a Ken Burns documentary, and it was about, the case is known as the Central Park 5. That's the young men that were accused of something. And then there's also, you'll hear it called the Central Park Jogger. Basically, the Central Park Jogger case was a criminal case in the United States over the aggravated assault and rape of a woman in Manhattan's Central Park on April 19th, 1989. This happened the same night that some other stuff was going on in the park. Groups of young men were basically attacking people, robbing them, beating them up, whatever they were doing, and this happened also. Everyone, including the police, thought that this was all part of this wildling thing that was going on in Central Park that night, that she was just another one of the victims. Well, they arrested about 20 to 24 kids on this. Some of them were released, but they had focused in on these 5 boys and said that they did this, and they had a couple trials, and it was was one of those things where the country was just fixated on it, and there was a lot of pressure to get some convictions. Even back then in 1989, Donald Trump, who was obviously just a private citizen at the time, he took out a full-page ad at the New York Times trying to talk the governor into bringing back the death penalty for these kids. All this weird stuff was going on, and it was just a frenzy in the news and everywhere. Everyone was talking about this. As you can imagine, the police were under heavy pressure to get some convictions. Well, they cut some corners and got some pretty shady videotaped confessions from these boys, and in the end, the boys took plea deals in most cases. 4 of the teenagers in the Miley case served 6 to 7 years in juvenile facilities. 1, who was an adult at the time, served 13 years. 4 had unsuccessfully appealed their convictions in 1991, and then 2002 rolled around, and DNA showed that it was one assailant, and they had him in custody, and he had done this before. The boys never had anything to do with it. When you look back on this case, you're wondering, how did these boys get convicted? So this woman was drugged into the woods, and there wasn't a bunch of footprints. There was her dragging feet and 1 set of footprints. They kind of ignored that. The boys were juveniles, and they were questioned without an attorney or a parent or a guardian, anything like that. There was all kinds of weird stuff going with this, and in the end, the DNA overturned all their cases. As you can imagine, the boys sued the city of New York and ended up getting $41 million. In 2014. Then they turned around 2016 and sued the state of New York and got another $3.9 million. I mean, the whole case was a disaster, and if you really want to learn about it, I mean, I just obviously brushed over this with a wide brush. Watch the Ken Burns documentary. Sticking with movies, 1988, Scrooged. This was a modern retelling of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, in which a selfish television executive, played by Bill Murray, who's visited by ghosts that help him regain the Christmas spirit. The movie was marketed as the return to acting by Bill Murray after a 4-year hiatus following the success of Ghostbusters. Born on November 23rd, 1888, Harpo Marx. He was born Arthur Harpo Marx. He was an American comedian, actor, and mime artist. He was also a musician, played the harp. If you don't know who he was one of the Marx brothers, with Groucho, Chico, and Gummo was another one that was there briefly with him. He never spoke in any of his roles. He just honked a horn and played a mute and a mime. And that's because when Groucho wrote him into the act, he realized Harpo had a hard time remembering the lines correctly, so he just made him a mute and gave him a horn. And it went his whole career that way. He was one of 5 brothers. You had Groucho Marx, Chico Marx, Gummo, and Zeppo Marx. And Harpo, of course. Died on November 23rd. 2014, we lost the greatest politician of all time. Actually, he wasn't the greatest politician, just what he did was amazing. Marion Barry. He's the infamous mayor of Washington, D.C., who was arrested on drug charges in 1990, only to be re-elected 4 years later. Okay, so the guy gets caught on videotape doing drugs in a hotel room with a prostitute, and they re-elect him. Amazing. That is the best move in politics ever. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.